Okay, thanks everyone for joining a carved out conversation. The theme for today is winning with Toy Fair Media and beyond. So really everything Toy Fair, I'd like to say there's really nothing off limits as long as it's something to do with Toy Fair. As much as we hate titles here at Carve Communications, I'm Scott Goldberg, managing director, so kind of leading the team, leading the strategy for the team. And as I think about toys, and I honestly had to ask my mom what was my favorite toy as a kid, and it turns out it was He-Man. I can't say I really remember it, but knowing the fact that He-Man has been around for a long time, that certainly fits the bill. And joining me is Amy Friedland. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Scott. Nice to be part of the Carve team. So I am the EVP here, and my favorite toy was the Easy Bake Oven. Way back when, I guess it's the love of my cooking free time now, and my baking goes back to all the time I played with the Easy Bake Oven, and ended up with a teeny tiny little cake after all that hard work. But always had a love for toys, and the Easy Bake Oven was my top fave early on.
I imagine it's still a favorite, right? It's still like the same idea, the same concept. Maybe it looks a little different, but
It looks a little different.
very nice. All right, so combined as an agency, we've represented well over 100 products over the years. The list goes on and on. It would fill pages and pages and pages of award winners and hero items, and certainly some funny stories along the way. And even adding to that, the categories. The categories are endless. Amy, I don't know if you want to elaborate at all on the categories that we have today and a little bit on some of the clients that we have currently as well.
Yeah, I would just say like there's a lot of also within that a lot of like licensed products over the years that have definitely take center stage.
Are there any categories that's your favorite?
Favorite. I would say probably tech and construction.
Way to steal.
Very, very different ranges.
Yeah, way to steal mine. Tech is always fun, especially coming back from CES a couple weeks ago. It's still top of mind, and um, it allows and creates a lot of interest and intrigue in the industry. So, and it fits a lot of trends that we'll probably talk about today. So, as we sit here getting ready for Toy Fair 2025, little less than 6 weeks away. At this point, we've got right around 15, 16 clients that we're going to represent in New York. And we're going to talk today about kind of how that all works, what happens behind the scenes, as people often like to say, how the sausage is made. That's going to be kind of a focal point for the discussion points today. And like I said, beginning of March. This is different for toy industry. There was no Toy Fair last year. The year before it was in the fall. Previously it was always like middle of February over Valentine's Day. A lot of colleagues in the industry that have been in the industry for 20, 30, 40 years often leave their loved ones on Valentine's Day to embark on New York and share stories and experiences. And this year, it being in March, a couple weeks later, the hope is, and Amy, feel free to kind of chime in here. The hope is the weather's going to be a little bit better because there's a lot of stories on the snowstorms.
Yes, I hope so. Also, years ago it used to be 2 weeks long, Toy Fair, so you had to pack your bags, and it was suits and skirt suits and high heels and all that stuff I hated. So exciting that it has really evolved over the years and a shorter time frame and less suitcases, but
That's
still fun.
Yeah. And you said 2 weeks. I remember stories where it was like a month from start to finish between getting to New York, building out your setup, your displays, the prototypes, hosting Toy Fair, then the teardown. I was never involved at that stage. I don't know if you were, but I definitely heard stories of literally people would like leave their families for a month to make Toy Fair as amazing as it.
Not the month. I'm still on the 2 weeks. The bridges to the 1107 205th building, but a long time and a lot has changed. So here we are today.
That's for sure. And we got to remember, hopefully at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some of our fondest Toy Fair memories because there's many of them, let's say. But let's dive in.
Yes. So let's just talk about sort of level set the playing field even before Toy Fair, and there's lots of different stages that we'll all go through, but understanding the audience of the people that are at the show. There's lots of media people there from broadcast, print, digital, everything in between. So a lot of the influencers that are coming, creators, as well as buyers, and really knowing who the audience is at your booth. We'll talk a little bit about priorities, but the spiel, as we say, for each of these is going to be different as you're approaching and discussing your product. So just really knowing who's going to be there versus any other like trade show, which is mostly like a selling show. This is a unique proposition because it's a combination of those. So understanding your audience, I think, is definitely key. And then this is always a hard one, deciding on your hero products because a lot of companies have a lot of new products, a lot of new SKUs at the show, and there's always a question of, which ones do I focus on? So going through, your babies, so to speak, of whatever your new products are, and really try to identify which ones you feel have the strongest sell in, which ones are from a media perspective, sort of the sexiest, TV friendly, easy to understand, to really hone in on those three or four that you're going to focus on, even though you might have a whole portfolio of SKUs. I think from a media and a creator perspective, really refining and honing in on a handful is definitely to your advantage. As far as the budget goes, you don't really, need to spend a lot. It's a matter of, more the blocking and tackling, which is more a time perspective going in. If you've got a great product at the right price, where product is king, you should be able to get some nice coverage for your product. So I think, setting a small budget without a, huge undertaking, aside, from your booth, is definitely the way to go and let your product sort of sell itself. As far as priorities go and success, I think PR teams have different, priorities than manufacturers. And, as you're either repping your booth or someone else's booth, understanding what those priorities are beforehand, is really key to figure out, are there some strong products that are, having mass support and you need to make sure you're selling through of those items in 2025, or do you need more support selling in those items to a bigger audience, whether it's for later this year or even setting the stage for 2026, figuring out from those hero products what you're focused on, and whether you're helping to sell through product that is on Amazon now or will be shortly. Understanding those things and prioritizing for yourself in advance is definitely key to set yourself up for success for the show overall. So those are just some early things. Hopefully you're giving some thought to or have made those final decisions so that as we talk on the next slide, really like getting into the tactics of what you do next.
So thanks, Amy. I want to build on a couple points and just kind of see what you think about this. So when you talk about hero products, is there like a limit to them? Can it only be one or two? Is 10 too much? Like what's your perspective, philosophy on how many hero products one company should have?
I think probably somewhere between 3 to 5 products. And depending on your product lineup, if you have a really strong item that might be in the tech category and like, oh, that's the product I'm going to pitch to tech media when they come by, that's one item. If you have something more that's going to be great for creators, I think you need to look at all of your products totally and see where they boil down. You definitely don't want 4 hero products that are in the same category because they're gonna sort of fight against each other for coverage. So I think you definitely need a couple of phases of narrowing that down, but I would definitely say 10 is too large. Plus, you're not going to be able to get through all the product as the media and creators don't have, a half hour to spend at your booth. You want to make sure you've got like, your top priorities up here. Let me get through these. And then if need be, and I have a little extra time, secondary, these might be my secondary focus. So probably 3 to 5/6, depending on where they are, is what I would say.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would, from my experience, I would say that makes sense. And then just to clarify, so everyone kind of understands, with Toy Fair happening in March, we talk about sell in and sell through. So essentially, those are like two different moments or two different life cycles, if you will. So sell in is trying to get buyers to commit to put a purchase order in for a product. Then the company goes and makes it. Hopefully, they get it on shelf, sometime in the fall, let's say August, September, and then sell through is getting consumers, creating that awareness so people go buy the product. So really two important phases. You almost can't have one without the other, which is where shows like Toy Fair and others are a necessity for a successful business. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Great. All right.
All right. So we're with the fun stuff and priorities and hero products that now sort of the work begins. And as we flip the calendar to the new year, while Toy Fair is in March and not in February, we are first starting our beginning stage of like seeing what we have to pitch to the media. So, it does start with some of these, basic blocking and tackling of, your media list. The Toy Association this media list is always a good place to start, but I think honing in on again what those hero products are is definitely helpful because you're not going to reach out to hundreds and hundreds of media people and creators, and you want to focus on the ones that matter most that have the biggest reach, but also the reach that defines what your product is and that audience to make sure you're matching. So, for example, if you don't have a tech product, you shouldn't be reaching out to Bridget Carey at CNET for something like that. Take her off the list. Like really hone in and focus on what makes sense. And I always like to have sort of a plan A, plan B. These are the people I'm going to reach out to first to try and book my appointments. And then sort of these are the secondary from a time management standpoint as the weeks go on, because there's other things besides just sending out emails and booking appointments throughout the day. So that media list is really critical, and you really want to hone in and see that media person is still covering the right kind of category, still coming to the show, that also, there's been a big turnover in the media landscape, that they're still writing for that same publication and they haven't gone somewhere else where now it's no longer appropriate. So build your media list, but really know who your media is and what they write about, I think is key. The next thing I would say is going back to, your booth and visuals. The manufacturers have different layouts of what their booth looks like, and having sort of those visual moments so that when influencers are coming by or media is coming by, the products that you're honing in on, not like those 10 to 20 that we talked about, but those hero products, where are they in your booth? What do they look like? Um, is there like a graphic of the name of the product? Is there a company logo so that if somebody's filming or taking a picture of it, think in those terms of shareability. What does your booth look like? And how could you make that product stand out visually versus putting it on a small little pedestal? And make sure you can demonstrate it, right? You don't want to just sit and talk about the product. You want to make sure you demonstrate it as well. So I think that is key and not something that should be overlooked in the conversation of Toy Fair as a whole. And then as we've been doing, we've been planning already desk sides and Zooms with some of the experts, the media experts that talk to other media people at the show. So set up appointments with the Toy Association, set up appointment with Chris Byrne, Toy Insider, TTPM, try and get to some of those experts now to know what they're working on, be part of the trend setting, show them your products because stories, are going to start to come out and you want to be part of the conversation. So show them your products, understand the feedback that they're giving you and how it might fit into different buckets. So when you're at the show, you'll know where your products fit within a larger conversation of the trends within the industry. I think that's really critical. And then the nitty-gritty of the show appointments. It's good to go into Toy Fair having those appointments scheduled. So, back to the media list, send out short notes to the media and try and book those appointments early because showing things on Zoom is great, but seeing product in real life, having media and influencers be able to take content at your booth is key. So try and reach out with those email opportunities and try and schedule some media in advance, knowing that once you're at the show floor, you see a TV crew, you're going to go and try and grab them and bring them over and show them whatever your latest, fun product that's visual as well. Prepping the elevator pitches is key. Very difficult for some, as those babies are so close to you and you've been living and breathing that product, you can't go in and explain the entire directions to a game. So what is that elevator moment? Why is it cool? Why is it visual? How does it fit in? Really honing that in, getting that under 60 seconds. And then if somebody is interested, you can expand a little bit more, but the elevator pitch is crucial because I know years ago when I was at the 200 building, bringing me way, way back, we were actually in elevators, and as you rode up to the different floors, we had our media alerts in hand, and you have a camera crew right there. You're pitching. You cannot let them go.
Yeah, you got to attack. Yep.
So th those were true elevator pitches, but knowing that short, sweet, concise moment where you can make sure your product's going to stand out and try and get the media over to your booth is definitely key. And then also submitting for the various different best of awards. Make sure they're on your list sooner rather than later. So it's another opportunity to be part of the conversation. And then also make sure those people are booked for your booth as well. That is key.
Great. Great perspectives there, Amy. To me, anyone that knows me and knows Carve, we always like our sayings. And to me, it's what this says is it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's both, right? You got to start with the relationships. You got to figure out how you're going to capitalize on it, have those meetings ahead to get the attention early. And then look, it's 4 days of chaos. And if you can have some scheduled chaos, it'll make it that much more, I don't know what the word is, productive, efficient. But you also need to know, right? Like schedules change. People will be late. They're not doing it to be rude and they're not doing it because they don't like you. They're doing it because because that other appointment they had 20 minutes earlier was also late. And so I think a piece of advice for everyone is like have a thick skin, don't take it personal, expect the unexpected and chances are, in the end, it'll all work out. But getting flustered is a part of shows, and it's not always easy to control it. But if you go in with realistic expectations, that some things won't happen the way you expect, and telling your team and prepping your team for kind of those what if scenarios, your team from the top down, from the C-suite down to the intern, right, is going to be really helpful in the long run because I don't know anyone that can go to a show like this and say, yeah, it was perfect. Nothing went wrong. Nothing was surprising. Nothing was different than what we expected. That's crazy. And that was a funny. I have that image in my head now of you in an elevator in one of those buildings, and like, oh, that's where that name came from.
Uh, that is my gift for you all today.
Thank you, thank you. All right, okay. Let's talk about trends. Right, trends come from kind of everywhere and anywhere, it seems. Trends come from, like you mentioned, Amy, the Toy Association, they always do a great job kind of identifying their trends. And really, I think out of anybody from they do the research, right? There's like kitchen table focus groups. That's not how the Toy Association does it. They really do the analysis and have such a good grasp on what's going on in the industry. And I think what's even more interesting to think about is they're probably identifying the 2027 trend right now. Like they're not basing it on the last couple of weeks. They're basing it on trends they've been identifying for years and seeing are they growing or are they stopping? Are they growing at a rapid pace? And it's always fun this time of year to get some perspective. And it's always interesting to identify these trends and think, okay, based on our clients, where do they fit? Some are obvious, some are less obvious. Some are kind of round peg, square hole, where it's like, look, is that really going to help you? if the trend's not obviously related to that product, and there's a difference between being a little bit of a stretch and being totally ridiculous. And I think we could all just take that important POV that like, look, you want to find the trends that work, but if you tried it too hard, the right reporters, the educated reporters are going to come back and be like, Carve, Scott, Amy, like that's that's not exactly what we're talking about. So I think trends have a lot of opportunity for coverage. They also, and we don't talk about this too often, but there's a retail perspective to trends too, right? They're going to all of a sudden decrease shelf space for one category and increase it for another based on what they're seeing in the marketplace. So finding trends that work for you are really important. I know we've listed out here a couple of them that are certainly on our radars for this year. So that goes from space themes, so anything related to space. And to me, this is a topic that's been around and isn't going anywhere, right? There are moments in time every year when a new spaceship is taking off and whatnot, and there's National Space Day, and but space is just we talked about categories before, Amy. I think this one's also interesting because it's education, it's usually technology. So when you find a trend that covers a couple different categories at the same time, it's like all those boxes get checked and the longevity and the potential are there. Um, what else stands out to me? Soccer and sports in general. It's interesting. There was actually a story that just went live today on some trends that a reporter from Gifts and Deck has identified, and she mentioned soccer because of the cup coming and everything. Like soccer, it's coming next year, but soccer is just such a it's a global sport. It's never really thought of as the top three or four in the US, but certainly in the global capacity it is. And so we're seeing more and more kids picking up soccer and more leagues and whatnot. So personally, I'm excited. I played soccer as a kid. So anytime I can find a reason to get my kids to go dribble a ball, it kind of puts a smile on my face.
One other thing I wanted to add about trends is that there's different trend pockets. So you look at what your products are and do they fit into any of the trends? And then some people will say, well, I don't have any products that fit into the trends. So now what do I do? Well, one of the things you also need to do is look at your products and say like, is there a national holiday about it? Did I go through, Javits and see like two other products that are in the same theme, not the same product, but like maybe live within the same area that are not part of, one of the Toy Fair trends. But if you're going out and you're pitching your product throughout the year or the summer, you might say like, oh, we say three products fit into a trend, right? Like you need at least three to be able to go and pitch a reporter. So, what are other products that thematically might fit in that you can create your own trend and support that trend with other products. So I would also encourage you at the show, because it's not just about Toy Fair, it's about the whole rest of the year, is figuring out and taking a look at the show floor, and maybe there's other sort of mini trends that you're seeing as well that could help you sell your product, throughout the year when it comes for another sort of media bucket, another bite at the apple, for a trend down the road that you're going to create.
Yeah, that's a great build. That point on you got to have at least three, right? Like one doesn't make a trend. Two,
Right.
like the more the merrier. And that's certainly, we've had a lot of success the last year or two, I would say. We talked about like different like the Toy Association has their trends, the Toy Insider. I think you can kind of find them from Circana, formerly as NPD. And those organizations identify theirs, but we've had a lot of success actually in the last year or two creating our own, like really looking at our clients and saying, hey, like you just said, I noticed three different companies having a product or category, I should say, that is starting to kind of get some real traction. And the best example, and there's a lot of data points out here right now. The best example is the term originally was kidults, so adults playing with toys. Then we saw over the last year and a half, an evolution of that term to eldertainment, where seniors are looking for toys. And I think our brains automatically go to like, okay, Sudoku, right? That helps elderly, and no question that's the case. But I think the whole idea is whether you're 6 or 106, like you like to have fun, you like to be challenged, and those games that encourage challenge and competition, certainly, has its value. And then what's interesting right now, or even over the last few months, that evolution, kidult, eldertainment to age neutral. And what that means to us is like that product, that toy works for everybody. Like there is no limit. It's going to be colorful and fun for little kids. It's going to be challenging and really have these additional sensory components and different ways to add to it, or endless play that's going to encourage like adults and seniors as well. And so I think age neutral is one that's really just it's more than scratch the surface, but it's picking up steam at an incredible pace, and one that wasn't around. At least people didn't think of it 5, 6, 7 years ago. But let's be honest, there were toys. Adults have been playing with toys. It's just now there's a greater focus on this.
Right. I was also going to say that, w with the pandemic, there was more of the, at home stay, family time. You're in your house. What are you going to do? So I think that, for better or worse, did further the category of family time and indoor activities. And we have seen an increase, just like within the games bucket, an increase of sales because games have also taken off, and it's not like they've dropped down. They're still really strong up there. So sometimes the environment just takes off on its own, no matter what we say.
Very true. All right, let's get back to the phases. So we talked about the pre-event phase. Why is that going crazy? Let's talk about the during, right? So this is the most stressful. It's the most nerve-wracking. It's also the most exciting. Like personally, I think I've been to over 20 toy fairs. I remember my first toy fair. I don't know if you do, but I remember my first toy fair. I was still in school. I was in college. And my boss at the time was like, hey, you should probably come check this out. I was doing PR kind of behind the scenes for a company or two. He flew me out there. Um, some great stories. Some are probably better for happy hour, but still some great stories. But nonetheless, Toy Fair during is just such an incredible vibe. There's just so much energy. And if you think, like you mentioned COVID, right? If you think about what was missed during COVID, it was the in-person experiences. We all did an incredible job thriving during those months and years and whatnot, where there were no shows, or at least few shows. But I remember when the first toy fair that came back last year, like just how exciting it was and how valuable that face-to-face interaction can be. And I think you would agree, Amy. We pride ourselves as an agency and as successful PR folks for years now of like the approach is there's no. You cannot take no for an answer. Like you cannot be shy. You got to rip the band-aid off. You got to go be aggressive. You see a camera, you mentioned it before. You see a camera down the hall, down the aisle. Yeah, you want to be professional and respectful, of course, but you want to go get that camera for your clients. A friend of the agency will tell you like that was when he first saw us do that at a smaller show, not a Toy Fair size show, a smaller show. He was kind of in shock and awe in a positive light of like, okay, that's what PR people are supposed to do. That's how these events are supposed to go. They utilize their relationships. They know the media by face, by name. The media know us, and that's the difference maker.
Yeah, I also know that, like, at every show, even I've been to more toy fairs than you. I will not say the number, but I know at all of these shows, it's like, okay, you're on site. What color are the media badges? That, like, laser focus, like, and then as you're walking around, you're not looking at people's faces. You're almost like looking at the badge. Oh, where are they from? Like, did we get them already? Are they on the list? Can I grab them? Which is the right product? Let me show them something. So, being on your toes and having your comfortable flats or your sneakers that I live by, um, just to get yourself through the show. But it's definitely exhilarating, Toy Fair.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a great point. Like, when are shows going to figure out, like, why aren't shows making the badges more legible? Like, I know some of them have like, oh, the word media is in yellow, but like, why isn't the whole badge in yellow? Why are we making it like? I kind of know what your answer is going to be, but I'm not going to answer it for you. So why do you think shows haven't just made it easier?
I mean, there's different audiences for everyone, and there's different reasons, buyers, why are buyers more important than media people? Why are media people more important than buyers? Right? There's again goes back to the different audiences, different importance. So everyone's on the same playing field, but they're just sort of calling out the differences.
Yeah, but like I'm
I
saying, so
POV.
buyers could be red, the whole badge is red. Media could be yellow, the whole badge is yellow. So it could make exhibitors' jobs easier. I personally think they do that because they understand some of those in attendance don't want to be hassled by others. But in the same time, and this is kind of like counterintuitive in some ways, in the same time, these attendees are at the show for that reason. So to me, I don't know, for anyone that's paying attention, watching this live or certainly the broadcast afterwards and you own your own event, like think about it. Maybe it's time to make it easier. Maybe that'll attract more audience, a bigger audience, a different audience. Anything, in my opinion, that we can do to make everyone's lives a little easier could be a game changer. Food for thought.
Very true. Different colored lanyards.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Let's talk for a few minutes. This is kind of our pride and joy. We're going to talk about an initiative that we have here at Carve during Toy Fair. It's called Carve X, the ultimate media experience. And what is Carve X? It's an invite only media event only, meaning you are only allowed if you're a media, a creator, an influencer, an advocate. This is not for nothing wrong with buyers and reps by any means, but that's not the audience here. We're focused on the media. And the reason the reason is this. We came up with this concept a couple years ago. This is our third Carvex, actually. We did it 2 years ago in August in New York City. Then just last summer we did it at Gen Con, and this will be our third one. And so the whole concept is these media shows we were just talking about, right? You don't know who they are. For the most part, media shows serve a great purpose. They give you they're a platform for influencers and influencers and creators and media to interact with products and brands and the PR teams. And based on some conversations we had with media, they wanted something different. They wanted a different vibe, a different setup that was just for them. When you think about what goes on at Toy Fair is a great platform for buyers and reps in the media as well. But what sometimes will happen from the conversations we've had, media come back and say, look, I'm not the priority at those events because obviously it's about buyers. Because if you don't sell your product to the retailers, retailers don't sell your products to the consumers. You don't have the money for the shows and for all of the additional kind of needs at a company. But when it comes to media, they've seen it where like, hey, if you've got a buyer there and a reporter there, the buyer gets the priority. The buyer gets the better access, the more immediate access. So net, we created Carvex as a concept of how do we create that experience intentionally for reporters. And one way that we do that that's different than others is we create environments. And so when you think about the products that are at hand at Toy Fair, and in general, I would say consumer products as a whole, where are they used? Well, they're used in the home. So for CarveX, instead of 6 foot tables where there's product on a table and a pull-out banner behind and some flyers and fact sheets and whatnot, we got rid of all that. Instead, we created rooms. So we have a little kid's bedroom and a playroom and a family room where these toys, for the most part, are being used. And then this year for CarveX here at Toy Fair, we also are going to create like a little outside environment for some of our sports products, some of our ride-ons. And so I think the point here is we wanted to create an experience that media would really appreciate and that they get to sit there and take the time and get the full demonstration of the products in a setting that's not speed dating, not quick. Take as much time. If you've got an hour, we'll fill it. Yeah, if you've only got 20 minutes, can we make it work? Sure. But for us, it's about the relationship and it's about the experience. And I'm proud to say we've got, over 10 brands committed. Some great media are committed as well. And, with 5 or 6 weeks to go, if anyone is still looking for an option when it comes to Toy Fair, please definitely reach out if the media is of interest and a focus for you. All right. Last
Right there. So here you are. It's the day after Toy Fair or the evening after you've packed up the show. I mean, for PR people, for me, I know this might sound crazy, but you get home from the show, you're exhausted, you haven't eaten much, you haven't had enough water to drink throughout the show, you have your suitcase, you come home. Um, for me anyway, it's to grab my laptop and start Google searching where are all those clips in addition to, doing it through Toy Fair. But I think making sure your post Toy Fair routine is as important as your pre and during, because you don't want everything to fall off. So for us, there's sort of two main areas like, what is that immediate coverage? What's that Toy Fair? What's the next week running? A TV segment might be running the following week. So making sure you have sort of your short-term plan and then long-term, which is more, a continuation of the relationship building of that media outlet where whether you've just met them or you've known them for years to really set the stage for the rest of the year because they might not be writing at Toy Fair, but they might be doing something later on as holidays come about or it's summer stories or, a number of different silos that they might be working on. So knowing there's sort of a couple of different stages. And then as Scott had talked about early on, like while there were trends leading into the show, there may be new trends, that have emerged. If you were scanning in, going back to finding some trends that work with your specific products, see what those trends are so that you're going to sort of tweak your pitches as you go forward, for the rest of the year and building on what you've learned, when you're at these shows and also like because we just did virtuals early on in this week, you do learn from the media what they were interested in. You're here to pitch XYZ products, but you'll see what resonates, what, bubbles to the top of interest. And from that, you might be tweaking your pitches, you might be reorganizing your priorities. One product that you might have thought might be like sort of in the B bucket or as a secondary item has gotten, incredible interest and you need to sort of reprioritize. So I think sort of reevaluating after the show is definitely essential. As far as follow-up goes, this is probably the most, important going to your, pad of notes of like every reporter, every creator who came through, every business card for those that are still giving out business cards. Um, what were they interested? Are they working on a story now? They might be working on something now that you didn't even pitch, and you have something else that you can serve up for that story. So making sure you're following up and providing the media or creators, whoever came to the booth, that follow-up experience, the continued building the relationships, as well as sending the essential needs for that article they might be working on, or a sample, or knowing that reporter has three kids and you hit the home run, they're all in the demographic of the products that you're pitching to. Put them on the list, those ages, so that when your products become available, you can reach out and say, hey, I know your daughter would love this product. If you want to check it out, I'm happy to send a sample. So that follow-up, which really takes time, is like the icing on the cake at the end of Toy Fair. So make sure you have enough time for that.
I
And
would
then
even,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Amy, I would even add, right, one other part of follow up here is like, what are the lessons learned, right? Like nobody's perfect. I remember even just the last Toy Fair. So, last September, whatever that is, 14 months ago, we didn't think the last day would be that productive and busy. And in many ways, Tuesday was busier than Saturday. And that was never the case at Toy Fair. It was always the first day is by far the biggest. It's where all the stories are broken. That's where all the media come. And it ended up Tuesday as just a huge day. So just as an example, being honest with yourselves that like there's always going to be ways for improvement. And if you can identify the lessons learned, you're going to be in a great position come next year to like improve that issue, avoid that issue, and have an even better show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to use the word pivot because, I feel like we've all been pivoting and it's overused, but that is it's still true at Toy Fair because you have a game plan and nine times out of ten that's going to be shaken off or switched up because there's new things that enter and you sort of have to rethink your strategy on the fly. So definitely just be prepared for that. And then, in addition to that, like sort of after all the follow-up, go back and look at what your PR plan was. Does it still apply? Do I need to tweak things? Have product timelines, shifted? Have priorities shifted? Is there a new trend? Is there a new importance? So just go back, spend the time. It will help set the stage for you for the rest of the year. And then as far as, getting that placement when your product comes out, because some people have products out that are in the spring and you're ready to roll and you have those samples, and others are throughout the year or specifically as it comes out Q4 or so Q4. So make sure you go back and you have that in play as well. And then going to sort of like one of my favorite things is just talk about the retail side of things is to make sure after Toy Fair is done, you're setting the stage and you're using all of that good ammo of all that PR coverage and making sure you do like a one sheet, a highlight sheet, a short and sweet, um, emailable coverage listing, some highlights, some logos of where your product was featured, because having that sheet and pushing it out to buyers to say, like, look, here's what's going on. We've got incredible coverage. Maybe you want to take more of this product than you thought before, or maybe you weren't buying at all, but now you really want to take some extra inventory on. So make sure you take all of that great coverage and push it out to your buyers for post Toy Fair, I think is key. And it's one of those good sales tools besides just your purchase order sheet to just make sure you're keeping those buyers in the loop of what's going on with your products.
Yeah. Get as much juice from the squeeze. I had to get that in here or
I knew
something.
you were going to do that.
I had to. So Amy, look, at this point, I think let's not pivot so much, but move on to a few kind of fun conversation points.
Sure.
What is, out of all the years and all the brands and all the products and all the activations that you were a part of at Toy Fair, what's like your most memorable moment?
My most memorable moment, and I've had some time to think about this, of course, is probably during my work during the Hasbro days at the Hasbro showroom when they were over on 23rd Street. We did an event for Batman, and Joel Schumacher and George Clooney and Arnold were all there to talk about the latest Batman products. And we did a press conference, and you spend a lot of time sending emails and doing things, but at that moment, when you're in that moment, and I do love a good product launch, um, really everything came together because as a kid, I watched Batman when I came home from school or on the weekends or whenever it was, and that was sort of my full circle moment. And the celebrity side of things didn't hurt either. So that was mine. What was yours, Scott?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down. Like you said, I mean, there's a lot of fond memories and like a lot of mine come, they start with like activation ideas. Like we were launching Disney's like Miles from Tomorrowland toy line, and we just had like a couple street team members dressed as astronauts right by the booth, and that garnered a lot of attention. We've done some fun contests with influencers. We've created, instead of a product that's this big, we made like a life-size version that really stood out. But I think when you and I started talking about this, the memory that without question, and I hadn't thought about it in probably a decade, is that last year at the Toy Fair building, where I think that was only my probably second or third Toy Fair. I should have looked at the year, but nevertheless, it was the last year. Everyone knew it was sold, and it was a very kind of somber, like fantastic show, but like a sad moment in time. And what I remember, and I'll be nice and not name names, but I had some colleagues that decided to take some of the memorabilia off the walls. And that was not, let's just say that was not legal. So there was some pandemonium, some excitement, maybe a few New York City's finest involved to resecure, get back that signage and some other pieces from the building. But I'll never forget when that kind of went down. There was so many people doing it. And I just remember people like going up and down the elevators, the stairs, trying to find additional signage that was still out before everyone else took it. And look, in the end, everything worked out. Nobody, as far as I can recall, got actually arrested, but um, I still talk to some of those folks, and it's encouraging me to pick up the phone and give them a call, which that's kind of Toy Fair. We haven't really talked about like the camaraderie, the social factor of Toy Fair, but as much as it's 9 to 5, like work, 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 and 9 to 5 is probably not it. It's way, way above that level. And so I don't know, that's definitely one of the best.
Yeah, and I do think there's camaraderie um, among everyone within the industry like I've never seen before. Everyone else is still rooting for their friends, for the others, raising up the industry as a whole. And that's one of my most favorite things that I see over the years. And the support for your fellow marketer is really amazing. So definitely one to continue.
Let's um let's talk more about media and how the show's evolved, from again, X number of years ago to where it is now. Like, what would you say has changed about the media as it relates to who's there at Toy Fair, who's covering Toy Fair and the like?
I mean, clearly, I think from a media perspective, it's the digital landscape, right? How many, as much as I love to read a magazine, like I love a hard copy book, there's not many magazines left that, everything, there's a digital version for everything. Social, though, I think has gotten, even bigger, where it's not just influencers pushing out content, but there's people that are coming to the booth, media people that are, creating content for their specific platforms with their phone. Longer the days where there's like the reporter and then there's the photographer that comes along with, it's in your iPhone, it's in your phone that you're shooting, you're creating content from any which way. So I think that has changed. I think the freelance writers landscape overall is key, should also be part of everyone's sort of media list bucket, et cetera, because, those are the people that are also, pushing out stories and you have to make sure they're included on your list as well. So those freelancers are definitely important.
What we talked for a second about lessons learned. Like, if you had your best tip for anybody at Toy Fair, I to some degree, I'll say based on a lesson, based on a mistake. Like, is there one thing that you've either experienced or you've witnessed that you were like, hey guys, like, don't do it?
I wish clients would have more prototypes available, because there's nothing worse when a PR person says, I have this great opportunity, or can I take this to a TV segment? And they're like, no, that's the only one that's available in the booth. And you're just like killing yourself because you want to get that placement, that hunger for having it, that opportunity. Take it off the show floor for an hour, for 2 hours. So I think prototypes are definitely for those key drivers are super important, and are always a challenge, but goes back to what the priorities are. So, there's a balance in working with your clients to know what that is, and there are going to be some misses because you don't have a choice. But again, just moving on, making the best of the situation and figuring out a way around it if possible.
And I think that's it, right? Like we said it before, but like there are going to be speed bumps. And when push comes to shove, you got to plow through, move on, focus at kind of what your goal is. But those that can, like you said it again, those that can pivot in real time, that's a great skill, especially for someone that goes to shows, to kind of just be flexible and nimble and be able to keep your eye on the prize. And for me, one of my biggest tips is like you can never overhydrate at a show. Um, During the day, more water is better. If you're like some of us that like to have fun at night, like work hard, play hard for sure, but if you play too hard, that next day is going to be rough. And so know your limits, but also like just plan accordingly, drink lots of water, take breaks for meals, all those things, they're really important. You're not impressing anybody by by not taking the bathroom breaks and water breaks and whatnot to stay your best. Because again, we've kind of seen when people don't do that. So, word to the wise.
So I have another quick tip on that. When we were prepping for this, I was talking to Mary Cousin, and she was saying like one of her favorite tips is to make sure that she keeps chocolate covered coffee beans with her. So it takes care of her little chocolate craving and takes care of her caffeine craving because the lines, as we know, at Toy Fair for the food lines and for the coffee lines are usually huge. So in addition to comfortable shoes or sneakers, she packs these little chocolate covered coffee beans in her bag. And I thought, oh, there's a little fun surprise for this year.
So you can just eat a coffee bean?
It's sort of like, coffee flavored, chocolate covered, not just like an actual coffee bean, but within, coffee infused
Those are the
chocolate.
necessities at a show, right? Water and caffeine, and certainly a little bit of sugar.
Exactly.
So as we're getting to the end, Amy, I think that the last topic for discussion is how in the world did you get into this crazy industry?
Oh, geez. I'll give you the short version. So, went to school for communication. And after I got out of school, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do? And I had my degree and I didn't know what to do with it. So, I was like, okay, so I really want to be in TV. So, I sent my resume out by mail, the old mail, not email,
Not
and
fax.
waited and made phone calls and I got nothing. And then I saw an ad for a job in PR and I was like, what is that even? I don't even know. And I took this PR class in college, pass, fail, because I had to, and I passed, but I didn't like it at all. I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and apply for that. Well, my career started in PR working for Michelle Litsky at Litsky Public Relations, working on the Hasbro business. I got into the toy business. I was like, this is so much fun. I never want to leave this industry. So you just never know. What about you, Scott?
So yeah, so my story is not it's similar but different. So I got a degree in advertising, so communications for sure. About I think I was a freshman in college and I was a camp counselor at a camp that's literally like I could see it probably from my house if there were no walls and trees in the way, like it's super close. And one of my campers' dad, his name was Brian Goldner. And Brian came up to me and was like, Scott, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was just like, look, I don't know, something in marketing or advertising. And then he and I stayed in touch. And then that next summer, he got me an internship. Tiger Electronics, when they had their office in the suburbs of Chicago, was like 5 minutes the other way. Camp was this way, Tiger Electronics was that way. And the next summer, he got me an internship. He had already moved on from Tiger to go essentially run Hasbro at the time. But similarly to what you said, once I got in, like no matter how hard I try to get out, it pulls you back in.
It
Uh,
does.
and there's many reasons, right? Many benefits to it. So the toy industry is, I think it's in my blood at this point. I have some toys from products I worked on 10, 20 years ago, literally right next to me. It's a fun, uh, never-ending industry, that's for sure.
Never stop playing, right?
That's it. I think that's a great conclusion to this. So, Amy, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Certainly, if you have any questions, I think everybody should know how to reach us. We're happy to explain anything further, add some color and context, talk about how we can support you at Toy Fair. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you all.